at the pilgrim well. Cracked stone, cold moss, iron smell, bitter on my tongue like buried years. Eyes filled up with other men's fears. The water whispered in a broken rhyme of broken crowns and rusted time. It carved its omen in my teeth, turned my breath to winter's wreath. I drank from water touched by wormwood, bitter on my tongue, bitter in my blood. It showed me how the world will end, how every bell is rung, how every beam is cut. The stars went black, the rivers burned, ash for bread and poison wine to bring. And I was left to sing. I saw a child with a quiet face, mark of cinder in a holy place. Priest in gold with hollow eyes, reading empty pages to the skies. Kings at war over salted ground, steel on flesh, that hollow sound. Red horizon, horses thin, candles drowning in their skin. I drank from water touched by wormwood, bitter on my tongue, bitter in my blood. It showed me how the world will end, how every bell is rung, how every roof is cut. The stars went black, the rivers burned, smoke for breath and scorched stone for a ring. And I was left to sing. Silence heavy as lead, no prayer, no promise, only the dead. The sky split open, empty as bone, every voice swallowed into one moan. I begged that well to take it back, but the taste stayed dark, the trail stayed black. Now every cup I ever raise echoes that night, that burning gaze. Drank from water touched by wormwood, bitter on my tongue, carved into my blood. It showed me how the world will end, how every bell is rung, how every tower is cut. The stars went black, the rivers burned, stone and song, the last of any king. And I was left to sing. Only left to sing. To say